Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us for our 2020 virtual hobnob of the DeLand Area Chamber of Commerce and Orange City Alliance. We are a nonpartisan chamber who advocates for our community by presenting this forum to educate and inform our citizens about candidates running for our city, county, state, and national elected office. Special thanks to our co-host of the event this evening, the Volusia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Tonight, we're truly fortunate to have 9 candidates participating in our virtual hobnob. The moderators are all part of the Legislative Affairs Committee of the Chamber, and we'll be interviewing the candidates one candidate at a time. My name is Robert Doan. I'm with the Cobb Cole Law Firm, and joining me tonight as interviewers are Natalie Reyes, an attorney with the law firm of Paul Elkind, Brands and Paul, as well as attorney David Clements with the Clements Law PA firm. Each of us will interview 3 candidates in hopes that it will further educate you in your decision process this election season. Before we start with the interviews, would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. I'd like to thank my partners at Cobb Cole PA, DeVita Lab, Paul Elkind Brands and Paul, Clements Law PA, James Moore and Company, Rome Media Marketing, the West Volusia Beacon, and the Studio Creative Group. Again, special thanks to our co-hosts, Volusia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. First up is Congressman Michael Waltz. All of our candidates will be joining us by Zoom tonight. We thank you all for your patience as we allow them each to log in between interviews. Congressman Waltz, can you hear me okay?
Got you loud and clear.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Michael Waltz is our current U.S. representative for Florida's 6th Congressional District. Congressman, welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with us.
Sure, happy to.
After a highly decorated career as a Green Beret, you had tours in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Africa. You went on to spend time in the Pentagon and as a policy advisor to the White House. By the way, thank you for your incredible history of service. When did you decide that the best next chapter in your service to the country was to leave active duty military service and seek elected office as a U.S. Congressman?
So one slight twist there. I'm actually still in the National Guard. So I didn't fully leave military service. I'm a colonel in the National Guard. We're pretty sure that I'm the only member of the House or the Senate that's still jumping out of airplanes. And so I'm still serving in that capacity. But to the point of your question, I decided with my time as a combat veteran, having dirt, sweat, and tears under my fingernails, so to speak, downrange, and understanding what that's all about, serving in the Pentagon, serving in the White House, and importantly, building a business in the private sector, where you have to take all kinds of risks in order to help your employees or for a product or an idea that you believe in. I thought all of those things would make me a better servant and a better public servant, really having those experiences and bringing that to legislating. So I decided that, yelling at the TV, being frustrated with the direction the country's going, posting on social media, arguing with your relatives wasn't good enough. Roll up your sleeves and be part of the solution. And I thought with those experiences, I could be effective. If you don't get results that you want in business or in combat, really bad things happen. I think too often Washington isn't focused on results. They're focused on perpetuating problems for the wrong reasons. And so that's why I decided to continue to step up and serve this great country.
This has been a crazy year, 2020,
Yes.
unprecedented in many ways.
Yeah.
What kind of challenges have you and your staff faced trying to run your congressional office, trying to stay focused on policies that are important to you, and all at the meantime having to shift gears and deal with the pandemic and the challenges that it throws at you?
A few things there. One, I joke, but I'm not joking. I have come to appreciate the little bit of time you have between walking between meetings or drive time or just time to think. I think we all probably have nonstop phone calls and Zoom calls now. It's back to back to back. So in some ways, it's actually, I think, created efficiencies. We've been more efficient, gotten more things done with this dynamic. But at the same time, particularly for my district staff, and I have 3 offices in the district that really focus on casework and on directly helping our constituencies with whatever their issue is, the Department of Veterans Affairs, Social Security, you name it. There's nothing like that face-to-face contact to really understand someone's issues and how we can help. And we miss that. That is, that's a real challenge. We're, obviously overcoming it. Fortunately, we live in a relatively wealthy country that we have internet and phone service and all of those other pieces to be able to work around it. But there's nothing like that face-to-face. And then, of course, from an agenda standpoint, COVID and Corona has just sucked the oxygen out of the room for other things that we really wanted to take on, infrastructure being one of them, water quality and the environment, healthcare reform, all of those other big issues have just been, I think, not only from just a legislative time, but unfortunately now financially with how much we've spent to deal with this. Final thing is I'll say there's some silver lining. I think one of the silver lining has been a real wake-up call for what Made in America means, and that is truly a national security issue, not just an economic issue, and bringing those supply chains home. And the other thing is understanding what the Chinese Communist Party is all about, and that they are not our friend. They do not share our values, and they do seek to dominate a new world order with, at least in my opinion, with them in charge and America not. And that's actually not just my opinion. That's in the words of President Xi, the chairman of the Communist Party.
Understood. It seems on the domestic front sometimes, and maybe it's a function of our social media society, and that partisanship at times seems like it's at an all-time high in Washington. What do you think needs to happen for Capitol Hill to regain a focus more on policy, a little less at the partisanship shot taking?
I think 2 things, and they both have to do with service. One of the reasons that I decided to run was a statistic that really I found very striking. And that is that we are at a record low in our nation's history in terms of veterans in Congress. We've gone from about 74% of the House of Representatives and Senate in the 1970s. So 3/4 were vets, had served, had been willing to die for this country, much less take a tough vote, right? That may not be popular. Right now we're at 18%, record low ever. And I'm convinced that explains a lot of the record amount of dysfunction. Why? It's not so much whether we agree or disagree on issues, but if I'm working with a Democrat who's a veteran, we have that commonality of service. We know that in the foxhole, the plane, the ship, wherever we've served, nobody cares about race or religion or socioeconomic background or what family you're from. They certainly don't care about political party. It's about mission, it's about country, it's about getting the job done. So I think the more of that ethos we get back to, the better we'll be in Washington. But I think the better for the whole country. And that's why I'm an advocate of getting back to national service. That doesn't just have to be in military uniform. That could be inner city tutoring, national parks, elderly care, Peace Corps, FEMA Volunteer Corps, Habitat for Humanity, on and on. But how do we get folks back to learning at a young age? Teamwork, followership, leadership, all of those skills that the generation with the draft did learn. And you did it with people that didn't look like you, didn't come from the same place as you back then. We're missing that forcing function. So I think both of those things together would put the country on a much better track.
That's an amazing statistic, that trend over time, and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
What message would you like to send to any young people in our audience tonight in Florida and in your districts that are considering a career in the U.S. Armed Forces, whether it's be early on getting involved in an ROTC, or whether it be enlisting in a GI Bill type program, or during college or after, what would your advice be to those constituents considering some level of service in the armed forces?
You know, my advice is simple. You won't regret it. I've never come across a veteran, World War II, Korea, you know, post 9/11, that looks back on their service and says, I wish I hadn't served this country, right? I've never come across an employer who says, I want fewer veterans, you know, not more, because of all of those intangible skills that we already talked about, that you come to the table with. I say just step up and do it. Your country needs you. We face unprecedented threats around the world, from great power competition in China and Russia to rogue states like Iran and North Korea to ongoing threat of terrorism. And I tell you, you come back with such a sense of perspective. You know, this country is by no means perfect. But as Winston Churchill famously used to say, you know, American democracy is the worst system of government in the world, except all the others, right? And when you spend some time in Africa, Afghanistan, places around the world, you appreciate that again, while it's not perfect, we truly do have the greatest country in the world, the greatest system of government. It's always, you know, the great thing about America is it's always striving to self-correct and to get better. But every day that I serve in Congress as part of the Republic now, I appreciate really how brilliant our founding fathers were, and this amazing idea that no matter what your skin color, your family background, your heritage, you know, that red, white, and blue means that the sky can be the limit for you, for someone who plays by the rule and works hard. And that is proven true for people from all over the world. That's why so many people are trying to come in. And it's just, it's an incredible honor to now be a part of that. And I take it very seriously, and I take we the people very seriously, and that you all are the boss. So to have a role, to spend some years of your life defending that idea, I think is incredible, and all young people should give it a hard look about stepping up to do it.
Congressman, I know your schedule is really packed, and we couldn't be happier that you were able to take some time and spend it with us today. We wish you the best of luck navigating the rest of this 2020 season. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much. God bless everybody. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
We just heard from Congressman Waltz, and we now have joining us Judge Brian Renzio. Judge Renzio is our current circuit court judge in the 7th Judicial Circuit. This circuit serves St. John's, Flagler, and Volusia County. Judge Renzio, thank you so much for joining us. I know you just came from a radio interview on the Marchman Act. I'll ask you about that in just a moment. I know you were a private practice attorney, shareholder in a law firm, board certified in construction law, and at some point you said, you know what, I want to take the bench and serve in a new role. When did that happen? When did you know you wanted to be a judge?
Well, first of all, let me thank the Chamber for having me. I appreciate you all giving me this opportunity. It probably started back in law school. That would be the earliest memory I have of it. Obviously, in law school, I had the honor to intern for a federal judge. And during that time, I got to see behind the scenes a little bit. And I have a lot of admiration for the federal judge. He had a great temperament. He was always thoroughly prepared. He did a fantastic job with his detailed rulings. And during that time, I really, got a love for what the judiciary does, and I decided that at one point I'd love to be a judge. And then obviously throughout my career, I was an arbitrator as well. And through that process, I got the opportunity to, hear evidence, weigh evidence, make rulings in a quasi judicial role. And at that point, it really just affirmed the fact that, I wanted to be a judge. I wanted to take that next step, and, I'm honored to be a judge today.
As much as you had that opportunity to kind of see it during your internship and other times, there's obviously going to be a little difference when you're wearing the robe and holding the gavel. You've been there for nearly 2 years now. How's it different than what you expected?
I think academically it was what I expected, and I've got 17 years of experience as a trial lawyer. So again, from the academic standpoint, there wasn't much difference than what I expected. I think emotionally, though, it's a little different. I think until you become a judge, you can't truly appreciate the emotional aspects of the job. Doing, for instance, what I do, unified family court. So dealing with families and lives, it's not just case numbers. It's not just names on a piece of paper. I know I'm dealing with children, and I'm dealing with, families, and it's very personal. That would probably be the biggest, not that I wasn't expecting it. Obviously I knew going into family law I would have that, but that was probably the one aspect that I don't think anyone can truly prepare for. And I always there's two examples that stand out in my mind. First one was a situation where I'm in open court and I get a handwritten letter that was written by a child explaining why he wants new parents. So I am handed this letter that no one's opened. I'm reading it in court, and it's heartbreaking. I'm a parent. I've got a 7-year-old and 11-year-old, and you're trying not to cry. It's a very heartbreaking thing to have for the child and for the parents. But then there's another scenario I had where we're in dependency court, and we've got a mother who had substance abuse issues. So her child was removed from her for a little while she went through a case plan to try to overcome her substance abuse issues. She did everything she was required to do. She went through the full case plan and did a fantastic job. She shows up in court. The child was in court, and we were able to reunify with her child that day. And I'm sitting there, and when they told the child that he was going to be reunified with his mother, they asked him if there was anything he wanted to say to me, and I can barely see him. He's just, a little child, so I can barely see his face, and he shakes his head no. And then the next thing I know, he comes walking by, and he actually walks around the bench by my bailiff, who I think was stunned as well, comes around and just gives me a huge hug, and doesn't say a word, just gives me a hug. And that's another moment that's, again, you're trying to hold back the tears, but it was a joyful moment. And those are the moments I hold on to. That second moment, the one where you get that hug from a child without any word being said, but you know what it means. And to see a mom reunified with her child, that's the moment I hold on to.
Those are incredible moments. That's got to be a rewarding aspect of the job. For those that don't know in our audience today, you mentioned being on the bench in the unified family court system. Tell us briefly what that is and how you feel about that system.
Yeah, the unified family court system, it was proposed by a steering committee, and it provides a unified system of combining different matters with one judge. So if there's a family or child involved in multiple matters, one judge is going to hear that. I absolutely love it. I think it's a great system. It integrates all of these cases. It's designed to cut down on legal fees for parties. And it's also designed to cut down and try to eliminate some of the trauma to children who are put through different scenarios. When you have one judge hearing all of these matters, I think it helps in that approach. And it's been fantastic. It's a heavy caseload, but I love it. I mean, I do dissolution, paternity, I do child support, I do juvenile delinquency, I do dependency, which is the foster care, I do truancy, adoptions, Baker Acts, I do Marchman Act proceedings, injunctions, risk protection orders, and then the other duties that all the judges have, which is to analyze and execute search warrants as well. So it's a heavy caseload, but it's rewarding, and I enjoy it.
I know that you came from a radio interview that was talking about the Marchman Act, and you mentioned the Baker Act in there. I think a lot of people have heard of what a Baker Act is before, but tell us just briefly, what's the difference between those two things? How do those apply in real life?
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of times they get confused. The Marchman Act is under Chapter 397, and that pertains to substance abuse issues. So if someone's got a chemical abuse issue or, you know, an alcohol abuse issue, any kind of substance abuse, they go under Marchman, whereas the Baker Act deals with, you know, mental illness issues. So they're both important issues to deal with, but quite frankly, the problem we're running into, I think, is that people don't utilize our Marchman Act as much as they could. And that's what I was trying to get the word out today on that other show, was we really need people to utilize it, and it's designed to help people. I mean, again, being in unified family court, I see families in distress, children in distress, and there are a lot of issues with opioids and substance abuse issues that hopefully we can help. The Marchman, it's not a punitive process. It's a petition that's filed. You know, the person goes through an assessment, they go through treatment with the goal of getting the treatment that they need in order to, you know, beat the problem. And then hopefully, from my perspective, you know, reunify them as a family or keep the family on track.
How is that different than the Baker Act, which some of us are a little more familiar with?
Yeah, the Baker Act it's specifically deals with mental illness issues. So the Baker Act, if someone is Baker acted, they're going to be evaluated at a professional facility for mental illness issues. Whereas the Marchmen, again, they're not going to be evaluated at a hospital per se. They're going to come into court. We're going to look at it with the hearing. The person who has a substance abuse issue will be entitled to have an attorney. But I make it very clear to them too that it's not a punitive process. We're all there to try to help them, to help the process, and with the goal of helping them get better. It's really just problem solving and treatment for two different issues. You know, Baker Act, we're focused on treating and getting help for folks that have they're having issues with mental illness, whereas the Marchman Act, we're focusing on helping people that have substance abuse issues that may not have a mental illness component. And a lot of times, unfortunately, I see Baker Act issues where it really isn't a Baker Act, it's more of a Marchman Act. So there might be a temporary mental illness, but it's not underlying mental illness or long-term mental illness. It may be brought on by some substance, so we can treat it through Marchman.
Understood. You made the decision several years ago. There was a vacancy in the bench. There's a policy, for those who don't know watching, or a procedure where you apply for an interview, and dozens of people applied. You were selected, narrowed down, appointed by the governor. So this is the first time running for office, having to go through the election process.
Yes.
So congratulations, welcome to that.
Thank you.
But tell us, why should the voters say Judge Renzio deserves to stay on the bench? Why should they choose you this time?
You know, the biggest reason, I have 17 years experience as a trial lawyer. I've been an arbitrator, I've been a mediator, I have experience in complex litigation. As the incumbent judge, I'm not asking anyone to look at my potential contribution to the bench. My contribution is being established on a daily basis, as I mentioned, through the unified the family court system, where people can look at my rulings, they can talk to attorneys who regularly come before me, and they can see just how dedicated I am to this job and how much I love what I do.
One, as a member of the bar, and two other attorneys are here tonight that will interview other candidates, I know we appreciate all our judges in the circuit. We feel very, very fortunate to practice in this circuit with such a great group, and so we appreciate you and all your fellow judges that are on the bench. We have just about a minute left. You got that call. You're told that you've been selected. You're going to the bench. You're going to be a judge. You're headed off to judge school, which is a thing for those of you watching.
Yeah, it really is.
What do your kids and wife say?
When you know, it's a huge decision when you take that role from private practice to become a judge. So it was something my wife and I obviously talked about before I even started the process through the appointment, make sure that it was something we were willing to go through, and we were. But once I got the job, obviously my wife was ecstatic, I was ecstatic. I think the funniest part though was my youngest child, my now 7-year-old, he looks at me and he says, you know, he's excited for me. He goes, you know, mom's still the boss, right? So I still know the hierarchy in my house.
Wiser words never spoken. Judge Renzio, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of the DeLand Chamber, Orange City Alliance. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you all. I appreciate it.
We now have joining us a candidate for Volusia County Tax Collector, Will Roberts. Will, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us and taking the time. Tell me how you went from years ago serving in the Air Force, working on F-15 systems around the world, to your current position working in the Volusia County Tax Department, where you've now been working for 7 years. And thank you, by the way, for that military service. How did you get here, and what led you down that path?
So I joined the Air Force to serve my country, and so I've spent more than 21 years in public service, 7 years in the United States Air Force. That brought me to Florida. That's where I met my now wife. Then I moved over here to Volusia County after I got out of the service, finished my degrees, finished my higher education. I got my AA from Daytona State College. I got my bachelor's from UCF. And then I joined the Volusia County. I became a part of County of Volusia government. And I finished my higher education there. So we got involved in a group that finished our master's degree in public administration through the County of Volusia. And I've been working I work for the Volusia County Corrections and the Seminole County Sheriff's Office Corrections Department for 7 years. And then I've worked for the Revenue Division for more than 7 years. I'm a certified assistant tax collector through the Florida Department of Revenue Property Tax Oversight Division. I'm currently the property tax lead, and I have been for more than 4 years, responsible for more than $680 million in revenue annually. And I just want to mention that tax experience is going to be critical in building this office from the ground up. My wife, I've lived here for 20 years with my wife of 18 years, Jennifer. And we have 2 kids, Jennifer, Carlina, who's 14, and Eldon, who's 11. And we're active in our church community, and we're all about public service. I'm a member of the DeLand Rotary, and I'm excited to serve and continue to serve.
For those of you, for those watching who don't know, having an elected tax collector in Volusia County is going to be new this year. It's the result of change in law, part of something that was passed on the ballot several years ago. Explain the changes, if any, that you anticipate in the tax collection operations here in the county as a result of transitioning to a division that's headed by an elected official as opposed to under the normal kind of county manager down chain of command that's in place currently. What do you see changing?
So our current services that we provide are property tax collection, tourist development taxes, business tax receipts, and vehicle tag and title. Now, one of the things that we're going to be taking on a few more things, state mandated. The driver's license is going to be state mandated to us. So we're going to be taking on that. That's currently a division, it's under the division of the state, or under the Florida Department of Highway and Safety Motor Vehicles. They're responsible for it here in Volusia County. Now and that's been actually a hot topic lately, because unfortunately the state office is closed from March to June of this year, and then they reopened, and then they had to close again because of COVID concerns. So it's been inconvenient for Volusia County residents and citizens to try to get their driver's license renewed. They've had to go to other counties and other elected tax collector offices to get those taken care of. So that's one of the things that we're looking forward to providing to Volusia County citizens, because then we'll be able to offer more services under one roof and provide more one-stop shopping for citizens and residents of Volusia County. We're also going to take on birth certificates and concealed weapons permits. So it's going to be a great collaboration of services. You're going to be able to go to one location, get your driver's license, get your tag and title renewed, pay your property tax. So it's going to be a great convenience for the citizens, taxpayers, residents of Volusia County, and I'm specifically looking forward to providing those services.
Just the change alone to being headed by an elected official would be a lot of change, and then with all those additional state mandates, there's going to be a lot going on in that office over the course of the next few years. What made you decide to say, hey, you know what, that sounds like a challenge I'm up for. I want to be the guy that has to deal with all that?
Yeah, well, you know, when I first started with the county back in September 2004, you know, right after the hurricanes, by the way, all the hurricanes came through and actually moved back my start date 2 weeks because of all that was going on. I started in the middle of September instead of the 1st of September. So I found it interesting as soon as I started with the county that we didn't have an elected tax collector, and that we were one of 3 counties in the state of Florida that didn't have an elected tax collector. And I said to myself at that time, if we ever get to a point where we have an elected tax collector, I definitely want to, you know, put my hat in the ring for that. So it's been on my mind for quite a long time, but I'm a career public servant, not a career politician. I'm passionate about serving Volusia County and the citizens and the residents and the taxpayers of Volusia County. And when my boss decided not to run for Volusia County tax collector, I just stepped up and said, hey, I'm ready to take this on. And I believe that voters need somebody with tax experience in this position. I'm that person.
When the law changed and it became obvious we were going to have an elected tax collector, what did you do in particular to prepare for the opportunity?
So actually, you know, over the last 7 years, I've working in the revenue division. I've actually, you know, worked on my skills right there. You know, my time in the tax office has actually prepared me for this. I've been working through training. You know, the Florida Certified Assistant Tax Collector is one of the highest certifications you can get through the Florida Department of Revenue Property Tax Oversight Division. So it's very important. It's a very important certification. It gives you all the tools and information available that you can possibly know about running a tax office. So it's a very important certification. Specifically for this tax collector transition, I've met with the county manager and county leadership, and I've about the transition plan and how I plan to work with the county. One of the biggest things I'm going to try to do is continue service with the county, including IT, HR, accounting, facilities. I believe that will be efficient and effective for this transition and will save taxpayer money in the end. I also have relationships with the Florida Department of Revenue, the Florida Department of Highway and Safety Motor Vehicles, which is going to be dealing with the driver's licenses and getting those transferred over to us. The property appraiser, I deal with the property appraiser all the time. And it's vital to have a good working relationship with the property appraiser's office, because we're so dependent on them for information, because they're, you know, the taxing authorities and the levying authorities give all their information to the property appraiser's office, and then we take that information from them, and we've got 300,000 parcels for property tax in Volusia County. So it's very important that we get all that information correct and then distribute all that information and the monies to the 47 taxing authorities and 171 levying authorities that we have in Volusia County. And I've also got the support and advice from tax collectors around the state. They've helped me out immensely during this process. And, you know, getting out, getting petitions, I'm ready to serve the people of Volusia County. And one of the things that I did was I got out and got 4,300 signed petitions to get my name on the ballot to save $9,000 in the filing fee. And they need more services and better customer service in several areas, and I'm going to try to provide that.
If there's one thing you could do to change, if elected, to change the level of service to Volusia County residents when they interact with the tax offices, what would that one thing or that one concept kind of be?
Well, and I will tell you this: COVID has opened our eyes to different ways to better serve customers and do it in a different, better way. One of the things that we're getting a new queue system actually for our tag and title offices because we noticed a opportunity and we had the funding by COVID, per COVID, and we are now getting a queue system which will bring great customer service as far as that's concerned, because we'll be able to provide text messages, and they'll be able to get information to us quicker, and they can actually stay in their vehicle until we need them to come in, which right now we have to have them stand outside, which in August time frame, that's kind of warm, and you always have the opportunity of the afternoon showers, so it's not very convenient to be outside. Now I do tease the ladies that work outside. I say I'm still waiting on the Disney fans where they have the misters, but unfortunately the county budget doesn't have those allotted, so we're not going to get those anytime soon. But
good. We have about 60 seconds left.
Yeah, absolutely.
$1 billion question. Why are you the best choice for the voters?
Because I'm the candidate with the tax experience. I already work for you, and I've proven that by how I've operated my campaign. 80% of my contributions come right here in Volusia County from residents, from business owners. I already collect your taxes, so that's not going to be a big change for me. I'm an effective leader. I have the respect of the revenue team. They know me. They know I'm a qualified leader, and I've built the relationships to make this a smooth, effective, and efficient transition for the taxpayers, and so that the taxpayers will not be spending more money. And I'll be trying to save the taxpayers as much money as possible, be efficient and effective. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Will Roberts, candidate for tax collector in Volusia County. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
At this time, I am going to turn it over. The next interviewer will be my colleague, Natalie Reyes, attorney at Paul Elkind and Brand. She'll be the next person that you see in this chair.
Hello, how are you?
Good evening, how are you?
Good. My face looks dark there, doesn't it?
No, I think it looks good.
Okay, maybe it's just my computer. It just looks like it's really dark here in front of me.
No, it looks perfect. My name is Natalie Reyes. I'm the Legislative Affairs Committee's chair for the DeLand Chamber of Commerce. I will be interviewing you today. We have Representative David Santiago that just joined us. He is a member of the Florida House of Representatives representing District 27. He assumed office on November 20th, 2012. Served in the U.S. Army Reserve from 1988 to 1996. Thank you for that. And you're currently running for Volusia County Tax Collector.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, thank you.
Representative Santiago, can you tell us a little more about yourself?
Yeah, first let me say I love the background. Great setup. It looks fantastic. So cheers to whoever set that up for you. I guess personal background. Married to my wife Emma, my high school sweetheart. We met in high school. This year we'll make 29 years married. 3 children: Christina, Gabriella, and David, and 2 grandchildren, Matthew and Leah. So former small business owner. But I guess personally, I enjoy fishing, different types of fishing, and trying to play golf. That's what I tell most people, trying to play golf. But those are kind of sort of the hobbies that I try to do and spend as much time with the family. That's what I do personally.
Representative Santiago, what qualities do you think are vital in a candidate pursuing the office of tax collector?
Yeah, that's the what is it, the $1 million question, $100,000 question, because the people need to understand that the tax collector itself, the person in that position, is an administrator. They're the individual that's going to be running the operation. They're the one that's going to be making sure that we hire the right people, we train the right way, we innovate, we invest in technology, and we improve the customer service. So my experience from the private sector and also my public sector experience, but most importantly, the private side, I want to bring a private sector approach to customer service for Volusians. I've worked most recently with JP Chase, started departments for them, hired managers, hired supervisors, and managed that and developed something from the ground up. And this office is going to be a brand new office, and that's what we have to do. So it's leadership experience, not necessarily whether or not you can process a payment or mail someone a bill. It's leadership and developing others and strategizing and creating the complex things. That's my background, and that's what it's going to be needed to be successful.
And what motivates you to run for this office?
Yeah, the timing was perfect. My financial services background is probably close to 15 years, whether it's JP Chase or the financial services from the insurance side. The timing came perfect because with the fact that this is creating a brand new office, it's what most excites me, that I get to form something that is within 2 bureaucracies, because that's what it is. You have the county bureaucracy and you have the state bureaucracy, because the state currently does driver's licenses for Volusia County. It's not done in the county. And other things like concealed weapons permits. People go outside of our counties oftentimes to get those applications. So the creation of something with my background and my experience in having done that successful in the private sector, and the government experience I have with connections and business relationships with leaders in Tallahassee and the departments of highway safety, that's what's going to make us successful to make this transition smooth. So that excited me because I know I can do it, and I know I can do it right, and I know I can bring a good private sector approach while still being fiscally responsible, because I had to do that on the private side. I had 2 small businesses that I've started and sold also successfully over my time here in Volusia County. So I've had to sign the front of that check. I've had those the stressful times where revenue was low, and how do you make rent and things like that. So I know this is a chamber, and we have a lot of business owners. I've seen the sacrifices that you all make, and I've been there and had some successes. I've had some challenges in the past too, but it's those successes and the challenges that's going to make me successful to do this for Volusia. That's what makes me excited. I'm sorry.
What do you think, Representative Santiago, that is the most important skill that a tax collector officer should possess?
Leadership. The person on top needs to be a good leader for its people, to ensure that they have all the tools, training, capabilities, and allow them to innovate. What happens, and I'm not a big critic of government, but I'll tell you from my personal experience and talking to others, in government, oftentimes people get comfortable, and it becomes it is what it is. We're not going to take that approach. We're going to lead and encourage people from the top down to whatever position you hold within my office, God willing, to recommend changes, suggest things. How do we continuously innovate to make it better? So that skill set and developing people have to know that work with you, that they have opportunities to excel and become better and help improve the system. When they're a part of it, they take pride, and that shows in their work product. So that's where I think a leader should be. And you lead by example often too, right? So my past experiences in leading large organizations, I've led organizations as large as 350 people. Most recently, JP Morgan Chase was up to 250. But I still see people out on the streets today that I may have managed or worked with on a certain level from years ago that often still tell me you were my favorite boss always. I always have a lot of respect for you. So I think I did something right. And we're going to bring that experience to the county, to the new tax collector's office.
Okay. Now, the tax collector is responsible for the collection of millions of taxpayer dollars. So why are you the right person for this job?
Yeah, and and I'll expand on that a little bit, because the tax collector's office, like I alluded in the beginning, one portion of it is the collection of taxes, like your property taxes and other smaller level taxes that you do, but that's like the primary one. But the other two big functions is tags. We're going to be bringing in tags completely under this office when you renew or get a title, and your driver's license office is another separate revenue generator too. So we're going to bring all of this together. So though the title says tax collector, right? It's a lot more broader than that. I wish they'd change the title for the future so that it's more descriptive of what the work role is, because it's an administrator role to overseeing some of the finances. But as I kind of alluded earlier, my private sector background and my successes there, proven successes in leadership, and my public sector experience with working with state government agencies, it's going to make it successful, right? And I often describe, if you want to give me your tax bill, you got your property tax bill today, I can't enter it into the computer. I don't work in the department. But what I can do is make sure that we have the right people there, evaluate, talk to the customers, and create a plan as to how do we innovate? How do we invest in technology to continuously make it better? So if you got a good head on you and you've had those experiences, there's nothing you can't learn real quick. But if you bring those past experiences along with a great management team, and that's how you make things better for everyone.
Now, for those of you that don't know, having an elected tax collector in Volusia County is new this year due to a result in change in state law. Representative Santiago, explain the changes, if any, that you anticipate in the tax collections operations as a result in transitioning to a division headed by an elected tax collector.
Yeah, I mean, the transition is going to be part of an evaluation process, right? So I will create immediately a transition team, because we have to bring in that driver's license office that's being managed by the state. We have to also take over the tag and title off work that they do. I'm also going to have to work with, we have currently private tag agencies here in Volusia County that are contractually obligated to serve. So I have to work with them to make sure that the contracts meet the expectation that I'm going to have as far as service delivery for Volusians. I'm going to hold them to the same high standard of service delivery as I'm going to hold our employees, encourage them to do. So, and we're also going to, very most importantly also, is evaluate to make sure that we have our offices in the proper population centers. I think there's a huge opportunity there to make sure that where people live is where they have access in numbers, right? Where they have access easily to interact with the department, the tax collector's office. And also, how do we innovate more within current statutes to make sure we allow for the expansion of communication and doing business with us electronically, the web. And if those current statutes are not there that permit us to do that, guess what? I've been doing statutes for 8 years and I have relationships in Tallahassee, so I will lobby the legislature to find ways to improve and expand current statutes to allow us to be more innovative and deliver this service more efficiently. So it's going to be a multi-piece approach and evaluation, but ultimately to create a good transition team and set a plan and make sure, who's going to be most important in that plan is going to be the members of the public. We're going to try to have focus groups. There's a lot of interaction with dealerships, with the tag office, right? So the different stakeholders, we're going to try to meet with them, figure out where are the opportunities for improvement. We're going to meet with staff. Hey, you may have worked here 10, 15 years ago. What would you fix? That's the big key. Ask the internal folks, what would you fix if you had the opportunity to fix it? So it's really exciting to me because I've done this before, and I know I can do it, and building those relationships, we're going to be successful. So I guarantee folks that within 6 months of me taking this office, they're going to see what they've been missing because they've never had an elected tax collector with the experience of that private sector and successes in bringing people together.
Representative Santiago, why are you the best choice for the voter?
I think I kind of said that a little bit here, but I'll expand. Hey, why not, right? I'll add this, and I appreciate the question. You know, in campaigns, you often sometimes see the shiny new object, right? And it might be a shiny object, right? But you don't know about the object until you really experience it. I'm proud of the record that I have and how I've fought for Volusia on many levels. With David Santiago, you know what you get. I think I've been a servant leader here for 8 years. And even prior to that, my wife and I and family, we've always been servant leaders, even before we thought about running for office. Oftentimes you see candidates pop up and all of a sudden they start volunteering in the community. My wife and I have been doing back to school fairs. Matter of fact, the next one's coming up this Saturday. We've been doing that for 15 years. Ever before I got involved in politics, we've organized community cleanups. We have programs where we help needy families that have given birth to a new child. We give them car seats, and we coordinate with the fire department to install it. So we've been servant leaders since we moved here 29 years ago, my wife and I, and my record in the legislature, it speaks for itself. I've never embarrassed this county, never been caught up in any controversy. And I think it's a safe bet with David Santiago, and I guarantee that we will be successful and you'll be proud of your vote for me.
Well, we thank you very much for your time. We appreciate that you actually took time of your busy schedule for this interview, and we wish you the best in the next election.
Thank you. Great job. I appreciate it.
Hello. Good evening. Hi. We now have joining us Judge Christopher Miller. Judge Christopher Miller was appointed to the bench in 2018. He attended the University of Tennessee and Stetson University Law School. He was admitted to practice in 2006, and he's running for re-election for the Volusia County Court Judge Group 6. How are you, Judge Miller?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me.
Judge Miller, what qualities do you think are vital in a candidate pursuing this office?
Sure. A number of qualities come to mind. First and foremost is integrity. Of course, everyone wants judges that are going to do the right thing at all times, no matter whether someone's looking or not. Integrity is key. Also, having a proper temperament and demeanor is really appropriate. Being able to keep a cool and calm presence on the bench can really help diffuse some of the tensions that will happen very often in adverse proceedings like we have in both criminal and civil courts. Intelligence, and then most importantly, I think, having sufficient legal experience and background.
What motivates you the most to run for judge?
I developed a passion for being in the courtroom. Even when I was a young child, I kind of knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I went to Stetson, as you mentioned. And Stetson is a world-renowned trial advocacy law school. They have one of the best programs in the country for trial advocacy training. While I was at Stetson, I took some trial advocacy classes and really developed that passion to be in a courtroom. I found that I could help people through speaking and persuading others as a trial lawyer. And then when I left law school, I went to become a prosecutor. I was a trial attorney at the state attorney's office for 12 years before I went on the bench. And in that time, I tried a lot of cases, spent a lot of time in the courtroom, and that really helped further that passion along. And I really enjoy the mental challenge of being a judge now for the last approximately 2.5 years. Particularly in the county civil division, I get to hear a lot of different types of cases and a lot of different types of lawsuits and legal issues come up on a daily basis. So it is actually pretty mentally stimulating. So that motivates me a lot.
Can you go into more detail as to what type of cases you hear?
Sure. Currently, I'm in the county civil division, and so I hear small claims cases, which is civil cases up to now $8,000 in damages, and then also I hear eviction cases, the ones that are when they're not stayed by the governor's moratorium, but eviction cases, insurance disputes, monetary claims for damages up to $30,000, as well as traffic crash cases where death or serious bodily injury is involved, ordinance violation cases, and then on a rotating basis, I will go to the handle first appearances out at the branch jail. If I were in a criminal division, which eventually I may rotate into one of those, county judges hear misdemeanor cases.
When did you know that you wanted to be a judge?
Well, as I mentioned a moment ago, I grew up kind of thinking I would be a lawyer. I'm the first lawyer in my family, but I had a grandmother on my mom's side that really always encouraged me to pursue law, and so I did. And as I mentioned, I developed that passion for being in a courtroom as a prosecutor at Stetson, and then as a prosecutor later. And I did some private practice work as well for a short time before I went on the bench. And I always kind of felt like maybe after 15 or 20 years of practice, I would be interested in putting in. But back in 2017, I was approached by some mentors who were judges that I had tried cases in front of, and they encouraged me to consider putting in for some of the openings that were coming available. And so as I went through that process, that really helped solidify in my mind that this is something I do want to do. And it was through the encouragement of mentors and just seeing this as a way to continue being in the courtroom, but also a new way to experience the law and to try to help folks to the extent that you can as a judge.
What do you feel is the most important skill a judge should possess?
I think the most important skill a judge should possess is the ability to read, to understand, and to apply the law both accurately and consistently without fear or favor. On a daily basis, whether county or circuit or criminal or civil, no matter what division, we are interpreting and applying thousands of statutes, cases that interpret those statutes, rules that govern the conduct of the parties in discovery or other processes. And it is so important that judges know how to correctly read and interpret those laws and apply them, so that the parties, whether they're individuals or business owners, that they can feel comfortable that the judge is going to apply the law uniformly and consistently and reach the correct outcome in any given case.
Judge Miller, do you ever wake up in the middle of the night thinking about a case, wishing you had handled something differently?
As a judge, I have not had that happen yet, thankfully. As a lawyer, I'm sure I did have experiences like that. I tried a lot of cases, and a friend of mine, a coworker when I was a prosecutor, always told me there's 3 different closing arguments you give. There's the closing argument you plan to give, there's the one you actually give, and then there's the one you should have given. And so there have been times when I've woken up in the middle of the night after a trial as a lawyer and said, man, I wish I had said this or said that. But you just you live and you learn, and you move on and you apply the lessons you learned for next time.
We've all been there.
Yes.
Judge Miller, what would you say is your proudest achievement?
As a judge, I'm very proud to have been chosen by my colleagues to be the circuit representative for the 7th Judicial Circuit to the statewide Conference of County Court Judges. All of the county judges selected me to be their representative, and so I serve on that board of directors, and I act as a liaison between the local county judges and our statewide board. And so I was just renominated, reelected for another term recently, so I'm very proud of that.
And what are your top 3 priorities for 2021?
Sure. My top 3 priorities are, number 1, to make sure that every person, every litigant that comes into court has a full and fair opportunity to be heard on their case. That's number 1. Number 2 is to make sure that I apply the law to each case without fear or favor, without being worried about the consequences of my ruling or without regard to who supported me during the election or who didn't. That plays no role in any decision making. It shouldn't in any judge. And so without regard to fear or favor, applying the law in each case. And then the third is to make sure that the courts are, to the extent I can, my own docket, keep them open and keep them moving, both during
I think we're having technical difficulties. We're having a weather issue, unfortunately. And I think we've lost Judge Miller.
I can't hear you. I think it shows you as muted. Zoom, yeah.
You were saying about your 3 priorities. We're on the third one. I think that's where we got disconnected.
Okay, so the third priority is to make sure to keep the courts open and moving and accessible to everyone, both during the COVID-19 pandemic and after it, to make sure that we're keeping cases moving along and making sure parties have access to the courts.
Judge Miller, what are the major influences in your life?
My mentors at work, I have great mentors that have really shepherded me along and taught me a lot. Judge Hudson and Judge Kelly are my 2 mentors there, formal ones, as well as many other informal mentor relationships I have with folks in the 7th Circuit. Our bench is a wonderful, very collegial bench. I had a lot of friendships and that people I learned a lot from as an attorney. Also too many to name, but on a more personal level, my wife is a wonderful companion and guide, and has wonderful advice, and I love having her input on things. She's been a tremendous supportive spouse. My faith has also been an important influence on me. I'm a member of St. Barnabas Church in DeLand, so that's important to me. But I'd say, from a professional standpoint, I would say my mentors in the court system have had probably the most profound influence over me.
Judge Miller, why should the voters vote for you?
Well, I'm glad you asked. County judges in particular, I think a lot of times get overlooked in the system. Many of the people watching this, the business owners, the members of your chamber, they might be in circuit court a lot with their business disputes, things of that nature, because those tend to exceed the $30,000 threshold. But keep in mind that county court judges and county courts in particular, we handle 75% of all the cases that get filed in the county courts, in the trial courts, 3 out of every 4 cases. So although you all, your members and people watching this may not directly be in county court that often, your employees probably will, your family members will, you personally might be in a county court at some point. For many folks, county judges are the face of the judicial system. We're the only contact that most people have with the court system, whether that's as a juror, as a witness in a case, as a party in a case. And so it's just so important that the voters do their research and educate themselves and make sure that they're choosing the candidate that has the right temperament, the right skill set, and the right experience to make sure that they can do the job correctly of county judge. It's very important.
Well, Judge Miller, I would like to thank you for your time. We wish you the best of luck during this election.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Our next candidate is Miss Mary Ellen Ostendorf. She will be with us in a few minutes. We're just having a little delay. Mary Ellen Ostendorf is running for Volusia Circuit Judge, Group 14, and hopefully she will be joining us in a bit.
I'm here. I just don't know what's going on with my camera.
I'm glad you can hear us. Well, we can go ahead and get started, Ms. Offendorf, until you get your camera set up. My name is Natalie Reyes. I am the Legislative Affairs Committee Chair for the DeLand Chamber, and I will be interviewing you today. Ms.
Okay.
Offendorf has been practicing law for 29 years. She attended Mercer University Walter George School of Law. She was admitted to practice in 2001. She's a county circuit and appellate mediator.
There we go.
There you go. Oh, something went off on our end, but that's okay. You're a county circuit and appellate mediator, and you're also running for the Volusia Circuit Court Judge Group 14, which I had indicated earlier. So welcome, Ms. Offendorf. Can you hear me? Back, can you hear me?
I can, thank you. Sure. My family relocated here to Ormond Beach just as I was starting high school. I attended Father Lopez, and then I went to Florida State for undergrad and Mercer University for law school. I relocated back after I finished law school here in Volusia County, where I've been now, I guess, 41 years, a resident. Been in private practice for almost 30 years. Personally, I am the proud fur mom of 2 rescue dogs. I have 9 nieces and nephews whose lives I'm very involved in. I am the 4th of 5 children and the only girl, so I like to joke that I have been mediating since birth, if not sooner. And I enjoy the beach, bike riding, and yoga.
And what qualities would you say are vital in a candidate pursuing this office?
I think I would call them the 3 C's. First and foremost would be courtesy. You need to have a judge who's going to treat every participant in the courtroom with civility, respect, and courtesy. The second is compassion, because you are adjudicating matters that truly affect everyone's lives. And then you have to have the courage to do what needs to be done, to neutrally apply the law to the facts as you hear them without prejudice or affiliation to any parties.
What most motivates you to run for judge?
I'm ready for the next challenge. As much as I enjoy the practice of law and I have enjoyed being a mediator, I'm ready for that next challenge. I think I have the solid foundation and the fundamentals. I've had this diverse general practice. I've spent over 13 years as a mediator, and I think that those skills have enhanced what I would need to do to be as successful as a judge.
When did you decide, I want to run? It is time to run for judge.
It's time to run for judge. I would say I considered the opportunities and the alternatives of how to get to be a judge, because there's more than one way to get there. And then I knew that we had a vacancy coming up here in 2020, and I said, there's your prize, put your eye on the prize. And I said, maybe 18 months ago, 2 years ago, I said, now I'm ready, let's go for it.
How have you prepared for this position?
I would say the diverse practice. One of the most important things when you think about what a circuit judge does is, in any given day, it could be one of many very areas. They hear serious criminal matters, they hear family law matters, they hear probate matters, they hear mental health matters. My practice has been in all of those areas. The areas that I don't do as much of, I can do continuing education. As an attorney, we're required to do continuing education on a 3-year basis. Every cycle, I always have more than I'm supposed to have, and I have it in areas that I don't necessarily practice in, just to keep up on my skills. As a mediator, we also have continuing education requirements, and I do the same thing. I try to take courses that are going to enhance the skills that I have to make me an effective mediator, but also to help educate me. I love to learn, I love to read, so I want to learn even more. So those are the steps that I've taken, I think, to prepare myself.
What do you feel is the most important skill a judge should possess?
Communication, hands down. You have to be, the most important part of communication is to be an active listener. So you're gathering the information from the attorneys and the participants that are in your courtroom. Part of your communication is to show civility to those participants. You're encouraging discussion when you can. And then it's prudent decision making. You have to make sure that all the parties and all the litigants know these are the rules. We have more and more individuals who are representing themselves when they come to court. Attorneys know that we have rules of evidence and we have rules of procedure. And if you're going to be a self-represented individual, you have to know that those same rules and those the same evidence code is going to apply to you. So you have to communicate your expectations to the participants in the matter.
Ms. Ossendorf, if elected, how will you ensure equality for people of all backgrounds in your courtroom? How will you ensure that it will work?
I think one of the most important things we're actually learning right now with the crisis, we don't have ready access to the court system. So what they've done at both the state level and here at the circuit level is when you're talking about how everyone's going to participate in the courtroom, not everybody has a laptop. Some people have to go to the library to have internet connection. So you have to be mindful of that and respect those limitations that your participants may have when they're in your courtroom. So you have to set forth what those procedures are going to be, whether they're going to participate by telephone, giving them the opportunity to participate through Zoom, and then communicating those. Each judge is given the opportunity to have a list of ways to participate that you can have on your webpage, and you can telling them these are the rules. I've seen a couple of ones that I'm really impressed with that actually go through the steps of how to log into a Zoom hearing, making sure people know what to do. So it's communicating expectations and then making sure that those that are participating know how you're going to do so.
What are the biggest changes you think we need to make to our justice system?
Oh, the biggest changes we need to make to our justice system. I think we just have to ensure that we have equal access. So I don't know that I would necessarily say that there's something broken that needs to be fixed. Obviously, we could always use more resources, but that's the purview of the legislature, not the judiciary. But I think the biggest change would be to continue to evolve using the technology that's available to us, but keeping in mind those individuals that don't have the same resources.
What would you say is your proudest achievement?
I think I looked about it on both a professional and a personal level, and I would say a combination of the two is my participation and my affiliation with the local Habitat affiliate has been one of my proudest moments. As an attorney, I've been able to render legal services to both the board and the family partners. And then as an individual, I've been able to mentor some of those family partners, work with them while they went through their sweat equity, building their own home and other homes. I'm not the best builder, but they let me do some things. And then as an attorney, I've worked with them doing their closings, helping them with estate planning. And that's just gratifying to see these family partners becoming prosperous community partners and joining in my community and making it a better place.
What are your top 3 priorities for 2021?
I can sum it up simply with a quote from Socrates that I love. He says that the best judges hear courteously, they answer wisely, they consider soberly, and they decide impartially. If I can take those 4 qualities and use them every day to render decisions in accordance with the law in a timely and effective manner, diligently and impartially, I've succeeded in my job.
What are the major influences in your life?
The major influences. Hands down, I read To Kill a Mockingbird in elementary school, and I wanted to be Atticus Finch. I joined the crowd of people who wanted to be Atticus Finch. I loved that he fought for the underdog. I loved that he went into the battle knowing that he probably wasn't going to win, but he was going to give it his best effort. I am the daughter of an attorney, and I watched him do amazing things in the courtroom. He was a juvenile prosecutor when I was a child, and he had tough cases, and you watched him make differences in those lives. And I wanted to then make a difference in my community.
What would you say is your greatest accomplishment, either in your personal life or in your legal career?
My greatest accomplishment. Ooh. I think in the legal career, I really liked working with those Habitat family partners and helping them get things done.
Why should the voters vote for you?
I hope that I have earned their vote. I've spent the last 3 decades working to make this a better community. I have honed my skills. I have done what I can to be able to then present a comprehensive analysis of what would come before me as a circuit judge. I've worked with individuals, families, and small businesses throughout here in the 7th Circuit and throughout the state of Florida. And I hope that my reputation and my skills would be enough to have earned their vote.
And last question, is there any specific message that you would like to send your voters?
I truly would appreciate their giving me consideration, and if they needed more information about me, I would invite them to go and check out my website, www.maryellenforjudge.com.
Thank you very much. I wish you the best, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
We've got with us candidate for Volusia County Chair, Mr. Jeff Brower. Mr. Brower, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Like a lot of people, I've had the opportunity to meet you and your family over the years at the DeLand Artisan Alley Farmers Market. Tell our audience a little bit more about Jeff Brower, the person, as opposed to the candidate.
Well, thanks. Well, if you've seen us at the market, so you already know that Terry and I are blessed with a large family. We got married in 1985, and we have 9 children. We have 11 grandchildren. 2 of our sons are currently serving in the military, and we're blessed with 2 of our children are raising their family here on the farm. When I married Terry, I had a landscape business in place. I did design and installation, and had started a little nursery here. And so she came right into the business, and we've really done that ever since. I've worked for other people as a executive recruiter and in a couple other different jobs, but always kept landscaping. We started a direct-to-consumer farm right after we got married, and that's a big part of our lives now. Everybody works hard at it. So we're outdoors people. We love Volusia County. We're very family-oriented, and that's one of the reasons why I'm running for the chair.
I know you've been in Volusia County since you were early childhood, spent some time as a lifeguard on the beach, been here for a long time as a business person. What made you decide now's the time that I'd like to run for Volusia County Chair?
Well, that's a good question, and it's to give you the shortest answer. It's really, there's 2 that I'll mention real quick. One is that I serve on the Volusia County Soil and Water Conservation District Board. And so water quality, environmental issues are really important to me because it affects our quality of life and it affects our health. But the thing that really propelled me into this race, I think, was watching the county council in the last year and a half go through the process of, I think, working harder than I've ever seen them work on a project to convince us to raise our sales tax to provide infrastructure money. Now, I oppose that, not because I oppose infrastructure, but just because I didn't believe that money would be spent on the infrastructure that our neighbors struggle with every day, their roads, their sidewalks. I thought it was all going to go out to the outskirts of town to build massive new developments, which just become liabilities with all of their infrastructure. So I got together with some local people, and we decided, about 5 people actually, and we decided we would really work hard to oppose that. We raised $1,000. We worked really hard. And we won that vote, as you know, against a well-financed campaign with a couple $100,000 with some great people behind it, people that I respect. But we won. After that, the group came to me and said, look, we really want you to consider running for Volusia County Chair. It was a huge decision. I've been involved with politics. I've helped other campaigns. we came home and talked to our family, and ultimately, as you can see, we decided that it was worth the effort, because the issues are so big, I think, for the county.
You mentioned, obviously, that issue kind of brought you in to the political mix. If elected, are there some particular policies or legislation other than that you'd like to address and pursue?
Yeah, the whole issue of providing an employment for people in Volusia County, you know, that's always, or it should always be very important. You know, I have a large family. You have a family. Everybody here has children or grandchildren. I want Volusia County to be a county where our kids can choose to stay right here and still reach their potential. Don't have to move to Atlanta or go to New York City, but there's good employment here, companies that are invested in innovation, that bring money in from outside of our county, that help fill our economic pool. I really want to work on it. There's a program called Economic Gardening. It has nothing to do with gardening. It has everything to do with helping existing businesses to grow and prosper, helping them get the information that they need, and providing infrastructure that benefits their business. So I want a Volusia first approach that helps our local residents and local businesses. Also, you know, water quality is really important to me. And then lastly, I'll mention that, because this has been a 9-month campaign for me, I've talked to a lot of people. We have a trust problem in Volusia County. I think I want to take government to them and really work on trust. And I want to hear from them. I'm not here to tell everybody else what to do. I'm supposed to represent, if I'm elected chair, I want to represent the people of Volusia County. So I want to hear from them and work on that problem of trust.
We're in some new and unique territory with COVID, and it remains to be seen the long-term effects and what those will be on our local economy. But I think most people agree there's going to at least be a short-term significant impact on county revenue. How would you set priorities in drafting the budget for 2021 and in the coming years in recognition of that kind of anticipated reduction in revenue?
Well, a couple of things. One of my major goals as chair is to look at all of our spending priorities and just redo them. I want to sit down with the county manager, with the other council members, and let's reprioritize how we're spending to be more Volusia County resident focused. We have a $500 million excess funds account in Volusia County. That's not my name for it. It's regulated by the state of Florida. That's what they call it, excess funds account. $500 million. We can use that money. You have to use it legally and wisely. We can send a lot of that money right back to all the departments that it came from in the county, so that there's no need to raise taxes. There's no need to suffer from a shortfall. And so it's a temporary solution to use the money that we already have, that taxpayers have already paid, and then to go to work on the things that I mentioned of the economic gardening, to focus like laser beam on improving local business economy. Look at what you're in downtown DeLand. Look at what DeLand did with our downtown. It's the most popular downtown in Florida. Why can't Volusia County be that? So let's go to work on a county basis to do that. And that's what I'm going to be, the biggest cheerleader that county government has ever seen for Volusia County, because I have confidence in us.
Even with the changes in our economy, people continue to move to the state of Florida. They continue to move to Volusia County. More people does, of course, mean a need for more homes. That brings with it some traffic, stress on the infrastructure. What are some thoughts you have on the best way to manage that future growth in the county?
I want to work with each of the cities. I think that's imperative. I think we have some really good people already serving that are true public servants in our cities. I want to work with them on these common problems or common struggles. But there is a problem. I think we need to come to a decision on where we grow and how we grow. I'm not against growth. I'm against growth that doesn't make any sense. I think we need responsible growth. So I think we need to a really important meeting. I was going to use a term that I don't want to use, but we need to look at areas in our county where we know that we shouldn't be filling in, paving over, and building homes, and say, look, this land is too important for our water quality and our water quantity. We shouldn't be building here. Let's come to that agreement, and then let's stick to it. Let's not change. I'm a big proponent of private property rights, but I bet you are too. But every time you buy property, it doesn't mean you get an automatic change in the comprehensive land plan or a zoning change. Some of them might make sense, and so I certainly am not saying never, but we need to really be careful on how we grow. I think the city and the counties need to work together and with the residents' quality of life in mind, and that'll be my goal.
We have just a little bit of time left. Tell me in closing, is there a specific message that you'd really like to share with the voters who are watching us tonight?
There is, in this long campaign, I'm asked a lot, how I like your ideas. How can you possibly get those done? Because here's the truth. I'll have one vote on the county council. Even as chair, I have one vote. I need to convince 6 other people. So I need the voters' help on this. I'm telling people that let's do the impossible. If you will help me win in the primary, everybody in Volusia County gets to vote. If you're a registered voter, it doesn't matter of your party affiliation, it's nonpartisan. Everybody gets to vote. You can win in the primary by voting for Brower, 50% of the voting public plus one vote. If you do that, it will send political shockwaves across this county. And I guarantee you, not me, but you, the voter, will have your power back, because every elected official in Volusia County will be listening to you. They'll see that these people are serious. They want a different direction for Volusia County. They want a Volusia first approach. So the voters are in charge. So I know this sounds cute, but it's true. A vote for Brower gives you back your power. That's my message. So elect me in the primary, and then let's get to work August 19th.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Jeff Brower, candidate for Volusia County Chair. Mr. Brower, again, thank you for joining us, and good luck in the election.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is David Clements. I'm a member of the Legislative Affairs Committee for the DeLand Chamber. Next, I'd like to welcome Gerard Whitman. He's a retired computer engineer and resident of Volusia County for over 30 years. He's previously served on the Bristol Township School Board in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Welcome, Mr. Whitman.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Whitman, why don't we start off with you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I just mentioned I've been here in the county for 34 years. Member of St. Peter's Catholic Church, a member of the Knights of Columbus. I've always been involved with youth groups, the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts when my children were young. And I also coach soccer. And I've kind of said that maybe I actually invented Bring Your Kids to Work Day, because years ago, on one day of the year, I would take my kids to work, even getting on the train and going to New York when I had to do that. And I just always felt that children needed to know what daddy did at work. And so I kind of, that came years later, and I worked with the groups at the companies I worked with, but kind of always felt that I had something to do with the start.
Now, what motivated you to come out of retirement and run for Volusia County Chair?
I think there's, what I'm mostly seeing is maybe leadership and trust, and having the experience that I can address those areas. That I know I'm been a good leader in that with my my past, and what I've been able to do on the school board up in Bristol Township. I was able to bring that trust into play because I was there on a partisan board, and I consistently had the support of both parties and all the parties involved. And we went through the 10 years that I served on the board. We didn't have any labor strife in a district that historically had labor strife every year. One of the unions would strike, and we actually negotiated with 11 different unions. So I think that being the piece of trust and leadership served the day.
What do you think what qualities are vital for a candidate pursuing the office of Volusia County Chair?
I guess I kind of just mentioned them because I think that's what's missing now is that trust. I'm going to put trust first, because I don't think we see that in the current council. There's a lot of bickering back and forth. I don't think residents are met with the reception that they should be, that sense of listening and learning, and making sure everybody is treated equitable and allowed to say their piece. So I know that throughout some of the debates and stuff I've had so far, the question of why is the county trusted? And I'm going to tell you that the trust starts at the chair. It starts somewhere. You have to make yourself available and be out there so people want to come to you and seek your opinion and know what you're guiding the council to do. I think I'm that person that can be trusted and be make myself available to all the people that will want to do things with the county.
Now, 2020 has been an interesting year. We've been dealing with a pandemic. What would be your top 3 priorities going into 2021?
Well, I guess I'm kind of mimicking one of the prior presidential candidates that I have a plan. I have a vision. Three things in my vision. And the first has to be COVID-19. We have to get that under control. And my idea and plan for that is to bring all the cities together so that we speak with one voice. We can't have penalties one place, a recommendation one place. I think that doesn't guide the citizens of Volusia County well. So we need to get together and understand what we as a county can do so that it's one voice. Then we get people willing and comfortable with going outside. Once we have people comfortable going outside, we can then get our children back in schools. If we get the businesses going first, once we have people going there, they'll be comfortable going into businesses. And once the business and the economy is recovering, then we can get children back in the schools and then bring our attractions and entertainment back online. It's a plan, and it has to start with getting people comfortable with getting out, getting outside, and being comfortable. And you got to go through it. You got to make sure you've established the first piece before you can go to the second, before you go to the third. And I was a project manager in one of my positions, and I know how to do that. I know how to put a project together and know how to ensure you've made the steps that you're trying, the plan that you're following.
You mentioned you do a lot of volunteer work. What do you think your biggest personal civic accomplishment has been?
I guess I'm going to say Habitat for Humanity. I've built 7, or you say I've built. It's always a team. You build together. And the feeling is no matter what you offer, there's something to do with Habitat. So you see people of all ages and abilities out there. But early in the time, since I've done a lot of construction work on a home before we moved to Florida, I was quickly given the right to, yeah, just go use the chop saw. We know you can do it. So, but yeah, we built here in Volusia County 7 homes. I think we refurbed 3. So when you see people that need a home and they're putting sweat equity in to be part of that, so you're working with the homeowner, and then there's just a satisfaction in that when you see the family comes out and they're then thanking you, and we don't do it for thanks, but you're seeing this family's going to get into this home, beautiful home that's just being built. Yeah, rewarding to me, very rewarding to me.
In anticipating, you know, a reduced budget, how would you set priorities in drafting the budget for 2021?
Well, I think the first has to be, and actually three items I think has to be top on the list. It would be health, safety, and security. So anything that will affect the health of the community has to be a high priority. Same with safety. I think they just all go together. That those would be the top things that I would, they would have to be ensured that there's budgeting for those. I note that I have a background in the first thing I did on the Bristol Township School Board was budget chairman, and I was able to hold the budget down for 3 years on a district again had been raising the budget year after year after year. I was able to find ways that we could cut the expenses, not hurt education. And again, I'm going to say I feel successful at it because, again, I was reelected to the board. So I think we definitely were doing a good job.
What specific message would you want to give to the voters? You know, about your, you know, why you should be elected, you know, your qualifications, things like that.
Well, again, I just go back to the fact that I have the experience. The Bristol Township School Board is run just like our consuls run. You elect a board or a consul with the school board. You elect the board. The board elects the president, and then the president and the board is the policy making agent of the school district. The school board then hires a superintendent who executes the policy that you had set down. Council here does I'm going to say exactly the same thing. The council is elected, sets policies for Volusia County, and hires a manager to execute those policies. I have the experience, I have 10 years experience at that. So I think that you know, shows that I'm qualified, surely qualified to do the job.
What steps would you, should the county take to improve economic opportunities for residents?
Well, I've given some thought to that, and I'm somewhat relying on my experiences that in Bristol Township, we had a Vo-Tech school and for high school students, and it was reputed to be one of the, I mean, it was the best in the area. And often when other districts didn't fill the quotas, they came to Bristol Township and told us we could use those quotas. But we taught everything, welding, bakery, nursing programs, auto mechanics, electricity. So I have this thought that we could have some sort of an incubator program where we found local entrepreneurs who were interested in starting a business. If we could come up with some small funding, just incubator type funding, and we were growing this local talent pool. Often a company can't get started, a small company can't get started because there's no expertise here, and it's too expensive for them to go out of state. I mean, you don't bring in people without paying them or paying their transportation, paying some costs. But if we had that volume here, that educated workforce, it would be a start. It would be a program that we could start. And the more small businesses we create, the better Volusia County will be.
Mr. Whitman, on behalf of the chamber, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us, and good luck on the upcoming election.
Thank you very much.
Up next, I'd like to welcome Councilwoman Deb Denny. She was first elected to the Volusia County Council in 2012 and has served for District 3 for the last 7 years. Councilwoman Denny, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. It's nice to be here.
Now, Councilwoman, you've been a member of the council. What motivated you to take the leap to become to run for Volusia County chair?
That's a perfect question because I just won re-elect in 2018. And so I was solid as a civil servant for 4 years. But when Chair Kelly decided not to seek re-elect, many leaders in the county sat down with me and asked me to seriously consider it. And at first I said no, that I just came off the campaign trail. I was good in the district seat. But after many conversations with them and looking at the future of Volusia County and where we are, that being the chair of Volusia County requires not just leadership, but a lot of knowledge and where we are. It's not a time to be cutting your teeth and a learning curve straight up. So I finally said yes, and here I am.
Now, there's been a lot going on this year. 2020 has been kind of crazy. What would be your 3 priorities going into 2021?
Well, one of the biggest things that we're going to look at for 2021 is our budget impact. As you know, with this pandemic, all revenues are down, all sales tax streams are down. We don't know what's going to happen at the state level with funding there. So there's going to be a real serious fiscal impact. In fact, our great clerk of court, Laura Roth, has been in front of council several times, and she just had to lay off 11 people. That's our clerk of court laying off people. And we were able to bridge the gap with her with some federal CARES dollars that we've received, COVID dollars, and some money from the general fund if she needs it. Hopefully the state will step in and fill that $500,000 gap that she has. So there's some very real issues coming before us fiscally. Water quality is always an issue. I just rotated off as chair of the Indian River Lagoon National Estuary Program, which is 5 counties on the East Coast and 2 water management districts. So water quality is a huge issue, as you know, for us. And then we're very fortunate because the governor just rolled out a program last week, $25 million, called the Indian River Lagoon, I believe the IRL Lagoon Opportunity Fund. So some of our projects that were redlined in this budget for our reasonable assurance plan and water infrastructure that were cut now qualify within this $25 million grant. There's $2.5 million per grant. So we're going forward, the county staff is, and supporting us in some projects. So water quality, and then of course expanding our economic outlook. One of the big things that has kind of stayed under the radar, but of course you know, with DaVita over there is the biomedical supply chain as well. Well, there's DaVita. I just saw the logo up there. There's so much growing in the biomedical supply chain in the aviation aerospace. So we're continuing to try to expand that and bring the jobs in because it's all about jobs. It's all about jobs here for Volusia.
What qualities do you think are vital in a candidate for Volusia County Chair?
It's a depth of knowledge and past leadership skills. I just shared that I've just rotated off the Indian River Lagoon Council. At the same time, I was chairing the Central Florida Metropolitan Planning Organization, which is 10 counties in mid-central Florida and 2 DOT districts. So between the IRL Council, the Water and Transportation, and then before the chair of the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, I was chair of the local Flagler-Volusia Transportation Planning Organization. So all that to say is our relationships, regional relationships, and with our cities and with our partners and the DOT and Water Management District, my relationships there are very strong, and most of those leaders I have on a quick dial. And another thing that I do bring to this seat, I'm very fortunate Congressman Waltz has appointed me to the Space Advisory Committee with him at the federal level, and the water quality at the federal level too. And then Senator Wright has appointed me to the Florida Space Caucus. I'm one of 2 citizens statewide on this with our state reps and senators. So I've built deep relationships, and somebody told me, said, Deb, your street cred is pretty deep. So hopefully that's some of the knowledge and leadership skills that I can bring for all of us.
Now, I believe you've done some work for the Guardian Ad Litem program. What do you think is your biggest accomplishment working with them?
So this serving as a Guardian Ad Litem with the 7th Judicial Circuit was really impactful for me personally, but those are our children and families that are really in a tough time and usually pretty extreme measures. And twice I've had to cause children to be removed from homes and placed in foster homes, and then represent them in the courts with our judiciary. And Judge Leah Case was on the bench at the time when I was a Guardian Ad Litem. And it's, again, knowing the agencies, knowing DCF, knowing the Office of Early Learning and Department of Education, and all of these other departments, and my relationships with them helped me serve the children that had critical needs at that time. So, and that's all volunteer, by the way. It's just because we love our community and what we do, and it's a natural offshoot from that.
How would you set priorities in drafting the budget for 2021?
Critical needs first. Absolutely critical needs first. Our general fund is the budget for Volusia County is very complicated, as you can imagine. We have like over 16 different basically organizations or corporations within the county. But out of our general fund, your ad valorem tax, when you get your tax bill that goes to the general fund, that's about over $200 million. Of that $200 million, over 72% of that goes directly to public protection, as it should, and our first responders and firemen. And so then the other there's another 12% of that goes to our elected constitutional officers, our elections department and the rest of them. So there's a very small piece of that, but then you're going into veteran services. So everybody thinks, oh, general fund and millage. Well, there's an account, and there are people and services touched with each one of those. So we're going to have to look at that. And probably the biggest thing Volusia has to do, we're already talking about it, is delaying some construction problems and capital projects we're looking at, because there's just no funding. We've got to serve the citizens first with critical needs and our first responders, and prioritize there.
What steps do you think the county should take to improve economic opportunities for residents?
Oh, that's another. Thank you. That kind of dovetails into what I was saying originally and one thing that we just passed about a month ago, two, three council meetings ago, was our commercial aviation aerospace overlay zone. And what that does is it speeds up the permitting. It doesn't override it at all, because people talk about being shovel ready. Well, you've got to be permit ready. You've got to get those regulations. When we have the next big company come in, they're not going to wait for 6, 9, 10 months just to get through the basic permitting. So what we've done is we've identified the wetlands, we've identified the sensitive lands, and they are on a map. And so everything is mapped out. We're not ignoring it. In fact, we have identified that for the first time ever. And that's going to be, it's actually is a huge economic indicator for us. And part of the property included in that is our airport. We've got about 300 acres at Daytona Beach Airport. and it goes all the way down south to south part of Volusia County, goes all the way over to Osteen. So it's a huge area that we're looking at that falls within this zone. And we're talking about technology indicators, clean energy, and anything. Think of building a satellite and the widgets and the supply chain that goes with all that. And then the medical supply that goes with that. It's all aviation, aeronautics connected. So looking to expand that brand and anchor it, we're getting there.
Is there a specific message you would like to send the voters prior to the election?
Yes, Volusia's best days are yet ahead. One thing that Volusia County does very well, and you've just seen this, we've just experienced this with this, thank goodness this tropical storm bypassed us. But when we get in positions like that, our Emergency Operations Center, our EOC in Daytona, if you've never been there and you're interested, please let me know. I'd be happy to give you a tour of that. If you've ever walked in there, you'll see desks and workstations for each of our cities, our universities, and many other organizations. And it's a hub for all of Volusia County, all of our cities. So when the things are the toughest, it's actually when we look the best. And our cities and the county are working so collaboratively and so well together right now. Our manager, of course, they have meetings once a week, the county manager with all the cities. Now our county attorney has started on his own a weekly meeting with all the city attorneys. And I will tell you, in fact, I had 2 conversations today with 2 city managers and electeds on different issues. And we actually resolved them quickly because the attorneys and the legal team have been meeting weekly to discuss these issues. So I want Volusia County to know that we're working our best to represent you and keep the quality and service levels as high as we can make it for great quality of life. And our good days, our best days are still yet ahead.
Councilwoman Denny's, on behalf of the chamber, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us tonight, and good luck in the upcoming election.
Thank you for the opportunity. What a great forum. You know, I don't know if you saw the videos, but you really sparked something in me because I recorded mine on my front porch. And I thought, you know what? We're gonna do this more often on issues. So thank you for that.
Next, I'd like to welcome Matt Metz. He's running for Public Defender of the 7th Judicial Circuit. Matt Metz is currently the Felony Division Chief at the Public Defender's Office and is board certified in criminal law. Mr. Metz, thank you for joining us tonight. I think you're muted. There you go.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, Mr. Metz, why don't we just start off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Daytona Beach. That's where I currently live now with my wife, Sarah Metz, who's an attorney in town. We have 2 children, a little boy named Lyons, who's 4, a little girl named Charlotte, who's 2. And I went to Father Lopez Catholic High School, graduated, went to UF, go Gators, and then I got my business degree there, moved on to FSU, go Noles. That's where I got my Juris Doctorate. I then went from there straight to the Public Defender's Office, and I've been there ever since. Now the Felony Division Chief of the largest trial division at the office.
Now, what motivated you to take the step from working for the Public Defender to running to be Public Defender?
So I've been with the Public Defender's Office now for almost a decade. And in that time, I've got to see all the great work that we do for the community. We're often the only shield for the Constitution for those people who are fighting for their constitutional rights, whether it's the right for freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, or the right to bear arms. And as the Felony Division Chief, I felt like I was in the best position to step into the role that Mr. Purdy, our current Public Defender, has vacated. As I'm currently the candidate who supervises the largest trial office, so I've currently already supervised 12 other felony attorneys and their staff while handling a caseload of 150 cases at a time. So I felt like I was really the right choice for that.
In your opinion, what qualities do you think are vital for a public defender to have?
So some of the ones that jump to mind, first would be communication. Obviously, we have an organization that's approximately 90 lawyers and then another 50 staff. So you have to be able to speak to the office and to the clients. We represent approximately 35,000 criminal cases every fiscal year. You have to be creative. Unfortunately, we're stepping into a time period that whoever takes over is going to have a likely budget reduction given the loss of tax revenue due to COVID. And you have to be persistent. When we're talking about goals in a governmental organization as large as we are, it's going to take time to make institutional changes. So that's what I would go with: communication, creativity, and persistence.
How have you prepared for this position?
So having been at the Public Defender's Office for almost a decade now and been in a leadership position for, I think, approximately 4 years, I think that I've been the person who's best prepared. I've been a part of a lot of decision making when it comes to the policies and procedures that our office has. I was part of the working group that helped take our office to a paperless system that helped change us from having everyday files in our office to going just on our computer and helping stay wireless. It's those kind of technological and governmental changes that are going to be needed in the near future. And that's why I think that I've been the best prepared.
What do you feel is the most important skill a public defender should possess?
I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, that skill of communication. We're going to have to be making a lot of decisions and making sure that those decisions aren't given short thrift by our employees. When we tell people that one of the most important things we can do is communicate with our clients, we need to be doing that by leading by example. So we're going to have to make sure that we're clear, concise, and making sure that all the goals that we set out are manageable and achievable. But that means making sure that all our attorneys and our staff understand exactly what those are. The cohesiveness that we're going to need as an organization comes from the communication that comes from the top.
Tell me about your proudest achievement.
That's a tough call. You know, I think it's probably split between some of the cases that I've had. If anyone wants to look, and you can Google Matt Metz or go to my website, votemattmetz.com. In the section titled Matt in Action, you're going to see some of the cases I've had that I've been really proud of being able to represent some fantastic people. But realistically, when I have other attorneys come to me and they say, hey, I've won a case, or I've won a motion, or even just I've been able to resolve a problem based on the mentoring or the communication that I've been able to give them as a division chief or even just fellow attorney during my time there, that's really what's made me proud, is being able to help others in this organization.
If elected, what would be your top 3 priorities going into 2021?
Well, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, the COVID situation has every governmental organization on its heels. We're likely going to be looking at a reduction in our budget at a time when cases are blossoming. We've got caseloads that are larger than we've seen in probably the last decade or two. That's because there's been a complete slowdown throughout the entire criminal justice system. So first, we're going to have to focus on retaining and triaging the people, the employees, and the cases that we have right now. That's going to be the first priority. As we manage to claw our way out of this situation, we're going to have to look to the future. And that means hiring employees. We have to go to the law schools and try to find the top talent, and then training those employees. We've got to create a mock trial system so that those newest attorneys know what they're dealing with, and a structured learning environment so that we're continuing to advance our learning abilities both on the trial side and the appellate side, because unlike some public defender's offices, we have an appellate staff that takes care of the appeals for 18 different counties in the area.
In your opinion, what impact does the broader political climate have on state and local politics, and have you seen a change?
Unfortunately, I have. While I've been running for public defender, I was the only candidate who attempted to get on the ballot by petition. For those of the people who are watching that aren't aware, the public defender's office represents all of Volusia, Flagler, Putnam, and St. John's. And because of that, we have to get 1% of the voting population to sign petitions, which means approximately 7,000 people. And doing that, I didn't collect as many as I needed, but I spoke to over 3,500, or pardon me, spoke to probably 10,000 people and collected 3,500 petitions. In doing so, I saw a lot of partisan division. There were people who refused to speak to me because I'm Republican, and those who only spoke to me because I'm Republican. But what they failed to realize is that this office is going to be representing everyone equally under the law, regardless of any of their political divisions. Because of that highly politicized arena that we've seen at the top levels, it's trickling down. But I can tell you that there's still hope. There are people who are willing to have a conversation. As long as we're able to do that, regardless of what side of the aisle we're on, I think we can still mark ourselves as safe. But we have to be, as leaders in the community, the first ones to maybe hand the olive branch sometimes.
Is there a specific message you would like to send the voters prior to election?
The Public Defender's Office is one of the most important offices that you won't hear about. Like I said earlier, we safeguard the Constitution for so many people throughout the entire circuit. And while we're never going to have the fame and importance of some of our larger races, we're going to be representing all the people that you love in your community. We represent your sisters, brothers, uncles, nephews, nieces, even if you yourself may never get in trouble. Because of that, you want to make sure that you have the best representation possible. As the felony division chief of the largest trial division and the only board-certified criminal trial attorney, I put forth a coherent and manageable, quantifiable plan for the future. And that's the type of structure and safety this office will need through the time we have going forward. That's why I hope you'll elect me, Matt Metz, to be your next public defender.
Well, Mr. Metz, on behalf of the DeLand Chamber, I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us tonight, and good luck in the upcoming election.
I really appreciate it. And if anyone wants to know more information, they can always go to votemattmetz.com. Thank you.
We appreciate you joining the DeLand Area Chamber of Commerce and Orange City Alliance on our virtual Hob Nob, and hope it was informative. Once again, we'd like to thank our co-host, the Volusia Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and all of our sponsors without them, we would not be able to make this happen. Our sponsors are Cobb Cole Law Firm, DeVita Labs, Paul Elkine, Branson Paul, Clements Law PA, James Moore and Company, Roan Media Marketing.